Hello and welcome back to Out of Possession. And today we've got someone who's having their second appearance on the show. He's the first person to score a brace at Out of Possession. It's TBL, and we're going to be talking a bit of Chelsea. And maybe for the people who missed the first episode, Tom, can you just explain to the lovely viewers maybe what you do on TikTok and the kind of content you make?
I mean, it's just I'm quite free with it. I kind of talk about whatever I want. It's mainly Chelsea because I'm the type of person who likes to be quite informed on the stuff I'm talking about. So Chelsea's very easy for me to be informed by because I watch every game and all of this stuff. And but yeah, I'm trying at the moment to branch out. I've done videos about Aston Villa and the whole set piece stuff recently, and those have done really well. So I think I'm a good channel to follow, even if you're not a Chelsea fan, even though a lot of my videos are about Chelsea naturally. But yeah, mainly that, and it's just kind of whatever I want to talk about.
I will say from first-hand experience, you don't want to go near Aston Villa. It's a dangerous place to be, especially at the
Especially
moment.
right now.
So,
Yeah, I try to be as balanced as possible about them because yeah.
I didn't, and maybe that was my downfall. That's it. Anyway, so yeah, like you mentioned, you're mainly Chelsea, right? So that's I think what we're going to look at today. I think there's some really interesting narratives around Chelsea right now with the kind of space you're in. It's maybe not quite where you want it to be, but equally, I think there's a lot of positive signs and players in that squad you look at and say you are where you want to be in a way. So it's a bit of a interesting place, at least, especially with where we'll start with the managerial switch recently from Rosenior to Enzo Maresca. And for me, I was just talking to you before we started, I think the really interesting bit about it is how little's change almost. It's felt like a really seamless transition. All the problems that were there before are still here now. So would you agree with that? Or do you think there's maybe more significant changes as someone who watches all the games and maybe picks up on the details more?
Yeah, no, the overarching thing, like I think the whole idea of little changing has probably been what Clear Lake's and Blue Coat's plan for Chelsea was when that managerial change happened. A lot of the Maresca stuff came off the pitch. He didn't like. He felt like after his first season that he'd earned maybe a new improved contract, and that's what he wanted. And he had obviously Man City. And Juve talking to him apparently in the first half of the season. Felt like he needed more power over transfers. Didn't get the centre back that he wanted in the summer, which was a big thing that the fans and him sort of really advocated for. So with the change, it kind of felt like we need to get someone in that plays similar to him, that isn't going to make any drastic changes tactically, apart from some small details, because it isn't completely the same, and we'll get into it. But we need someone that's just going to keep the ship afloat for the rest of the season, try and get Chelsea back in the Champions League, and hopefully also deal with a lot of the issues that Chelsea had in the first half of the season. The problem with a lot of that is that none of that has really gone away, as we've seen. We still concede a lot of set pieces, we still get red cards, and those two things have essentially been the difference between us being where we want to be, or we should aim to be at this point in this project, and once again being in a pretty tense battle for Champions League places. So there's not been much change, and I think that's why Rosenior was at Strasbourg, was because it was very similar, and he was going to get, if he were to come to Chelsea, he wouldn't be getting the players to be doing anything truly drastic from what they were doing under Maresca, and it's a part of this whole multi-club ownership thing. Everyone's got to play the same way. You're a Man City fan, you'll be familiar with it, with City Group and all this stuff. I have my own opinions on multi-club ownership, so that's not what this podcast is about. But yeah, it's there's not been much difference, to be perfectly honest, which is good and bad in a lot of cases.
Yeah. I think in a way I've been kind of disappointed by how Rosenior has been at Chelsea so far. I dibble and dabble in the French league a bit, so I watched quite a bit of his Strasbourg team. And I think I'd classify that as it was a bit hipster almost. And I feel like at Chelsea, he's been stripped back a bit so far and quite reserved, and maybe doing the more flashy tactical setups, the more interesting stuff. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but I feel like it's been a bit reserved, maybe.
Yeah, I think naturally, I think when you have a jump in quality, like the squad from Strasbourg to Chelsea, that jump, you're going to have to have to lean on that quality a little bit more, try and get those players in those positions, let them play. Whereas at Strasbourg, it's probably very much like his tactical setups has much more of an impact on how successful Strasbourg are. Whereas with Chelsea, it's probably a lot more weighted towards the quality of players Chelsea have and the squad building. There's definitely some radical things, like, for example, at Strasbourg, Penders was playing centre-back in possession. And I don't think, because Penders is very, very good with his feet, I don't think you can do that with Rob Sanchez, because Premier League teams are very pressy. As we saw against Arsenal, he can get very nervous when he's playing against a good pressing team. Arsenal probably the best pressing team you can face in Europe right now. But there is a lot of similar things there, like the close proximity in midfield. Maresca wasn't really doing as much of that. He's manufacturing a lot of more direct attacks and goals. I look at our goal against Burnley recently, our opening goal that Joao Pedro scored, first goal against Leeds, our third goal against Wolves. They're all sort of ones where we've baited a team in, baited them in with a press, and gone direct. And that's something that he did a lot at Strasbourg. I think it was trying to turn a lot of possession into direct attacks, which under Enzo Maresca we had a lot of issues with, because it became very clear that Chelsea struggled under Maresca against back fives. And that was because Maresca was very much like, where I want the opponent to be is in their penalty box and on the edge of their penalty box and defending really deep. Whereas Rosenior's very much put a bit more of an emphasis on trying to get them out of that situation so that we can use the space in behind. So yeah, I think it's difficult to come in and do loads of hipster things, because Chelsea were already in a pretty rogue Champions League battle when Maresca left, and they're still in that now, and you shouldn't really be tempting too much upheaval tactically, I think. So maybe if Rosenior gets more time into next season, we'll see a lot more of those things. Who knows what happens with the goalkeeper situation? If Penders comes in, maybe he starts doing a lot of that build-up stuff a little bit more. But I think it's a mix of different things as to why it's sort of not been as hipster as you say.
I think that's always the answer, though, Nick. Football has so many variables in it. I think as creators, we like to simplify it down to things and say, this is the problem, this is the problem. But the reality is, like, it's always a blend of a lot of little problems that creates the total outcome. But I think one of the problems, or maybe not problems, we're seeing is Rob Sanchez right now. Because I think a lot of Chelsea fans regard him as one of your best players this season. But the thing that it always comes back to for me is he does have that bozo gene in him. And when you watch him in big games, he is consistently making mistakes. And if you want to go to the top, you want to be competing for Premier Leagues, competing for Champions League in the next few seasons, I don't see a world where he can remain as the goalkeeper unless he cuts out that bozo trait. So do you see maybe a path for someone like Penders coming in and being Chelsea's number one in the future, especially because he is more comfortable with his feet, and that's what Rosenior wants in a goalkeeper? You alluded to him playing as that kind of second centre-back, which Rob Sanchez can't really do, and it's why we haven't seen him do it. But Penders could do it. So do you think there's maybe a pathway for that in the future?
Yeah, I think the idea is that Penders will eventually be Chelsea's number one. I don't think that will be next season. I think that's a bit too early. I think goalkeepers need a lot of time, and because of the way goalkeepers are it's such a confidence position. It's a position with such a large spotlight on it. It's very hard to shake a reputation if you're a goalkeeper. You can't be throwing goalkeepers too early. I think you have to be more conservative with the type of games that you put them in. It'll be interesting to see what Chelsea do. My preference would be that Penders stays on loan there next season, because I think he probably needs that just for Chelsea to be sure that because he's progressed really well. I know you say you watch a lot of French League. I don't know how much you've seen of Strasbourg this season, but he's been pretty good for them this season. I think he's developing quite well there. And then it's a case of, like, is he developing well enough to be, should he come and be second choice, or is he developing well enough to, let's keep him there for another season and then he'll be first choice by the time he's here? Because what will happen is if he comes next season, he shouldn't be first choice, because I think it's a little bit too early. And then if he's second choice, he's not playing. So it's difficult because a lot of Chelsea fans don't want another Courtois situation where we have this great goalkeeper on loan for too long and all these things, because we had Courtois on loan in Spain for like 3 years. But yeah, for me, he's definitely seen as like the long-term number one, and he's got all of those skills. I think he just needs to develop a bit more, and it'll be interesting to see what Chelsea do next season with him.
Do you think there's a matter of maybe like fan pressure as well? Because I think objectively right now, like Rob Sanchez is a very good goalkeeper in the majority of games he plays. But so therefore I think the sensible decision, right, is to keep him because he is very good. But do you think there's an element of a lot of fans who just maybe watch the highlights, they just see the big moments, they see Rob Sanchez as this liability, as this like bozo almost, is the word you keep coming back to. And do you think there's an element of maybe the pressure of those fans wanting him gone, meaning the board might take that action in order to gain some credibility?
Chelsea's board very much will do stuff that they think is right. They don't. I think if what Chelsea fans thought about a certain thing that they were doing with squad building was that important to them, then I don't think they would have signed Garnacho in the summer, because no Chelsea fans were into that really. They're very autonomous. They can do their own things. I think from the fan pressure perspective, it's like you just said that Sanchez is. You don't feel like Chelsea can go and win league titles and Champions Leagues with Sanchez in goal, which I think is always the default that fans fall to. My view on it is that he is nowhere near the biggest problem that Chelsea have in their squad, and I think he's actually probably won us quite a lot of points this season in comparison to other players and other positions on the pitch. Like I think centre back has lost us a lot of points. I think left wing has lost us a lot of points in comparison to goalkeeper. And in those big games, it is like, first leg against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup semi-final, he was culpable for probably 2 of the goals, and he wasn't good on Sunday either. So he was probably at fault for the winner. But overall, in his whole body of work over the last sort of year, he's been very good. And I'm the type of person where like I like to sit back and have a look at what a player has done over a long period of time rather than look at these moments, because I feel like I don't want to get caught up in the fact that, he didn't have a great game on the ball against the best pressing team in the world. Do you know what I mean? So it's
yeah.
And I know at corners and stuff like that, on the winner, it was quite, he should have done a lot better. He was kind of looking for a foul instead of actually just trying to catch the ball, which is something he's really good at. And it's disappointing. He isn't a Courtois or an Alisson. He's got a lot of differences to Raya. He's probably not the shot stopper that Donnarumma is, but I think as an all-round keeper, when you look at shot stopping, claiming, with his feet, he's not amazing, but he has really good games with his feet. I think he's a perfectly serviceable goalkeeper, and I think because Chelsea have Penders there, I would rather Chelsea just stuck it out until Penders was ready with Sanchez, because I think for the most part he's been a very good keeper for us for like a year. And I know because fans get, if a player kind of throws away a game against Arsenal, it becomes you become a bit of a traitor to the club in a way. So I think that's probably a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, I think, because I think that largely over the last year he's been quite influential.
Yeah, I think it comes down to whether you have a short-termist or long-termist view, right? I think you probably have a long-termist view, and therefore eventually you get rid of Rob Sanchez, which is kind of what I'm saying in terms of I don't think you can go and win titles with him, but you're not challenging for a title next season or maybe even the season after that. And like you say, short term, he is far from the biggest problem at the club. Yeah. But I think it comes back to narrative like everything does. And the problem with football is that the narrative around Chelsea, for example, is very rarely controlled by Chelsea fans who are going to watch every game and be sensible and nuanced in their viewpoint. It's controlled by rival fans and also Chelsea fans who maybe a bit fair weather and just watch the big games. That is the majority of people, and therefore that is who controls the narrative. And so I think we could very easily see the narrative become that Sanchez is a liability, and it comes back to then, do the board respond to that narrative like I think a Man United maybe do? Or like you said, you think they're quite autonomous, do they not respond to that narrative and instead stick to making sensible footballing decisions, which is what they probably should do? And I assume you think they lean in the latter in terms of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think the media narrative is a bit lazy around us at times. I think people like Gary Neville, for example, and Jamie Carragher, they'll go, "Oh, Chelsea needed a goalkeeper and they need a centre back," and it's like, it doesn't really feel like, when they say that, it kind of feels like they're thinking of like 2024 Sanchez.
Yeah,
it's like, we watch every Chelsea game, and he's been objectively one of our best players this season. So it's like with what goalkeepers are like right now in modern football, it kind of feels like they're always under pressure and they're always going to make mistakes. We've got set pieces where their target number one for the attacking team disrupt the goalkeeper. We've got, every team wants to play out, so the keeper has to bait like attackers in to press him. And it just feels like the football environment is really challenging goalkeepers to keep their nerve. And I think he's done really well this season, but I think it's difficult, because I think when you look at, for example, Man City, I think there were a lot of question marks when you signed Donnarumma, because you bought Trafford.
I think there's still a lot of question marks.
Yeah,
but we'll get on
good.
that.
Like from a shot
perspective. Objectively, what he's been brought in to do, he has done very well. But I think there are issues that, again, it's kind of like the opposite of Sanchez in terms of he does the big moments very well, and therefore you're fair weather fan and the narrative around him is very good. And if you go against that and maybe try and be a bit more nuanced and look at what the ripple effects of maybe what he does in possession and how negative they are, if you then come out and talk about that like I've done, and like El Nobbins, who you probably won't know, but he's a really good City creator, have done. You kind of get labelled as this like Judas against the club, and you hate everything about Donnarumma. And it's about, again, it comes back to this thing of narrative and maybe how the narrative is controlled by the big moments rather than consistency, which in a league format, the consistency and ripple effects matter way more to me than what you're going to do in a big moment, which is maybe what matters in a format like the Champions League.
Yeah, I think with Donnarumma, what it was, you go from Edison, where like he's a really good goalkeeper that is amazing with his feet, and that was why Guardiola loved him and wanted him initially, to Donnarumma. And it's kind of like you're ignoring the media narrative with that move, because it's like, okay, we want Donnarumma because he's this amazing shot stopper, but he's not going to be that great with his feet, and we're going to have to deal with that. So I think in totality, I'd much rather my club ignore media narratives, because I think 95% of them are very lazy and quite rubbish.
Exactly.
But again, it's like I get the issues that people have with Sanchez, but it's like, as soon as he has a game like that on Sunday, it's even in our fan base, people go, "Oh, they need to get a new goalkeeper." It's like, he's been really good for us for like a year. He just had a bad game against a good team. Like, it just happens.
Let's just say, for example,
asking online fans to be rational about stuff is quite
difficult.
I'm not expecting much, to be honest. But yeah.
But let's just say, for example, in the summer you do go out and sign Mike Maignan. I can't say his name. Maignan. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. That the AC Milan goalkeeper. I don't think you're in a different position anywhere to where you are now if you do go and make that signing. And it does seem like every time Sanchez has the bozo moment, which is normally on a TV game in one of the big games and everyone sees it, like the cries of, "Oh, Chelsea are stupid for not signing Maignan" come out, when realistically I don't think it would have made that much of a difference. I think he's a lot of the same deficiencies that Sanchez does when you watch him.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of like, Chelsea should go get experienced goalkeeper, Chelsea should go get experienced centre back. Like, name them. I'm sure there's ones out there, but like, tell me who you'd want, because if it's Mike Maignan, I'm like, I think Chelsea are probably still sixth right now if he's our goalkeeper. We might have got a point against Arsenal on Sunday if Maignan was playing, but we might have lost elsewhere because Sanchez, as a shot stopper, has been really, really good. He's made loads of great saves. But yeah, I don't know. I think I try and remain a bit more reserved on Sanchez because I think that there's a lot of other issues at Chelsea that lead to where we're at right now than he does. Yeah.
I think one of those issues is the wingers, right? And this brings us on quite nicely to the discussion around Cole Palmer. And you corrected me before we started recording and we were talking about this talking point of I feel Cole Palmer's been really, really poor this season. And I think that's kind of objective. But there is a reason for that not many people know about that you explained to me.
Well, yeah, he's got a groin injury that he's been dealing with, and it's the same one, similar to, I think it's fairly similar to what Yamal dealt with. We also, 2 years ago, had Enzo Fernandez had a hernia in his groin. That groin injuries linger quite considerably. I've spoken to a follower of mine who I've seen at games and all this stuff, and I chat to quite a bit, who's a physiotherapist. He says that groin injuries, they linger quite considerably, and you can't just go and get a surgery to fix it like a lot of people are suggesting. And that's really affected his performance. And he's been quite outspoken about it. You know, when he scored his hat-trick against Wolves, he came out afterwards and he spoke about how, you know, all of his frustration is not at his teammates or where the club is, and the fact that, you know, we aren't really performing or getting the results that we want to this season as a club. It's that he feels like he can't help the team as much because he's still carrying that injury. And you can see that there's flashes there, but he doesn't seem as confident. His decision making seems a little bit worse. And he just seems like he's lost a step, which is very generalizing, very vague, but I'm not an analyzer of player injuries, so I'm not completely attuned to it, but he's been dealing with an injury basically all season, and he could have had surgery before the season started. He was having injections at the Club World Cup. It wasn't as bad then. And the season started after his break, and Chelsea decided to keep giving him the injections to keep going through it, and he was like, no. He went off in the warm-up when we played West Ham, I think in August or September, and then he didn't come back for 3 months. He was out for 3 months, and in that time Chelsea was still pretty much fine. There's a stat that's come out from the BBC in the last couple of days that we've won 73% of our games that he's not played in, and won 23% that he has played in, which is a pretty crazy stat. But yeah, it's difficult. I think the one bonus to it is there's all this kind of newspaper rumours about him wanting to go back to Manchester to play for Man United and all of that stuff. And I think no club with the form that he's in and the fact that he's carrying injury would be sensible enough to spend 100+ million on him in the summer, even if he was asking to go, which I don't think he is. So I think it's more sort of like he just needs to get over that. But I think the reason why he's really trying to play through it is because he wants to go to the World Cup and he wants to play for England at the World Cup. And, you know, with the way Morgan Rogers played in the first half of the season, and Jude Bellingham being there, of course, and Foden and Eze and all of these players that are in the running for that position that he's going to play in, because Saka's probably going to play on the right, it's very clear that he wants to compete for that and show Thomas Tuchel that he can play. And that's probably why he's frustrated. And he's also frustrated that he can't help Chelsea as a team. So it's difficult because it does get to a point, it has gotten to a point, especially with the way he played against Arsenal, that Chelsea fans are like, is he the same? Did he just have a good first season and that was it? But to me, I still see a very good player there. I just think he's been dealing with that injury all season.
Yeah, I think my issue with Cole Palmer has been that he's meant to be the guy for you, right? He's your primary creator, your best player. I think that's fair. And I think that the context of the injury, which I didn't know existed, is important when we discuss this. But I just think, for me, he's a bit too easy to removed from a game from a defensive perspective. Like if we look at the game against Arsenal, and again, the context of the injury is very important, but he was dictating things, I think, for about the first 20 minutes, and Arteta stopped it like that just by getting Saliba to do a man mark job on him. And then he was almost absent from the entire game after that point. And I think this is something we've seen consistently last season at points as well, is that in these bigger games, he's kind of quite easy to shut out.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's like a positional thing or, I think it's always more difficult it's very difficult to find space in that area of the pitch that he's in all the time, especially in the Premier League. A lot of fans think that he should go back on the right wing. I think that, to be honest, that there's a certain part of me thinks that I think selling those two players we did in the summer that had a very good on-pitch relationship with him has probably impacted his ability, because he seemed to have a good relationship with Joao Pedro in the Club World Cup, and he has done since he's come back. He came on as a sub against Napoli and assisted both of Joao Pedro's goals, and that was a huge win for Chelsea in the season. And he's still there in moments, but I think it's just like he seems more isolated at times. It seems like he's less familiar with his surroundings because there's been so much upheaval around him last summer. And I think the two players that left, Madueke and Jackson's not fully left. He's probably going to come back and we'll see what happens. But I think the relationship he had with both of those players was a huge reason why he was so comfortable in playing in that number 10 role in Maresca's first season, because Madueke was to the right of him, and he definitely has a better on-pitch relationship with Madueke than he does with Neto. And he definitely had a very good relationship with Jackson, who did miss a lot of chances that he created for him. But Jackson, he ran in behind. He gave Cole like a passing option into space, whereas Joao Pedro is more of like a guy that comes close to him. And you saw that in the Arsenal game where Joao Pedro and Palmer are very close to each other, and then Gabriel and Saliba are just on them, and they don't have runners coming off of them. And I just feel like selling those two players would have also had an impact on him with the groin injury and all of these things going on. I think it's just been a really tough season for him, where not everything is sort of there for him to be at his best.
Just
which could sound like excuses, but
yeah, I think that it is partly excuses, isn't it? But equally, excuses, they're kind of valid. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle in terms of this injury is damaging him. I think no one can debate that, but equally, you can't say, oh, it's 100% because of this. There is also the fact that he's probably just not having a great season as well. The truth is somewhere in the grey area. Just quickly on England as well. Do you think Cole Palmer has a place in the England squad? Like, is that starting? Is it coming off the bench? Where do you see him in the World Cup?
If he had good form for the rest of the season and he was decent and he played instead of Bellingham in the 10, I'm not gonna say no at all, obviously, because I'm a Chelsea fan. But I understand the idea that Bellingham's probably better as a 10 in a tournament like that, because he can be that guy that can sit in a midfield three if Chelsea England needs him to, whereas Palmer's not really like that. I don't think you can play him on the right because I think Saka's going to start there, and I don't really have an issue with that. I think Saka's been one of England's best players for the last 4 or 5 years. I tried to think of a way to get all three of them once in my head. I was like, oh, it would be fun to see, how would you get Palmer? Would you get like an overlapping left back and Bellingham and Palmer players like split 10s? And it's just like, then you'll go into the thing that Southgate was doing, where he was just playing Foden on the left, and it was just unbalanced. But as an England fan, I'm a huge England fan. Like when England are in a tournament, I desperately want them to win. I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, I don't really care. I care a lot about Chelsea. I do care about England a lot. It just seems like it should be Saka, Bellingham, Rashford behind Kane, and then Anderson and Rice, I guess. But it's I think you take him because I know, for example, Ollie Thomas has been saying a lot about he's like, start Bellingham and Saka and then bring Palmer on as the first substitute, especially if you need goals or the game's 0-0 or something like that. And I do kind of align with that. I think if you saw in the Euros the impact he had off the bench, you don't know whether he's going to have that from the start. And I still think he's a much better player than Morgan Rogers and as both of them. I know Rogers has been very good this season, but I think the impact that Palmer has on games at his best is something that you can't ignore. And I think Eze, even though Palmer's not had his worst season, I still think he's been better than Eze this season. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I would be pretty disappointed in Tuchel, because I love Tuchel, obviously, if he didn't take him. But I think he will. I think all these things about him and Bellingham not going, I think they're a bit overblown.
That
I
is,
think they
again,
will.
nonsense.
I think there's space for both
narratives.
of them, because I think FIFA are gonna expand the squad cap number or whatever to like 26 or whatever it was, or 28. I don't know, from 25 or 23. I don't know. But they're going to expand it, and I think if that squad cap is like 26 to 28 players, then I think you have to take him.
Even if the squad cap is 12 players, I think you still take him. For me, he is kind of that
All right, the
the
first guy,
12th
yeah.
man. I think
I
he's
think
the
it's
first substitute, like you say. But especially just because he's so versatile, right? He can play off the left, not his best position, but we've seen him do it. He can play off the right, he can play in the 10. To have someone who can play in any of those front three roles with the quality Cole Palmer has, I think it's a no-brainer that he's in the team. Would I start him over Bellingham? No, because Bellingham gives you that defensive security as well. He gives you that combativeness, the box crashing. I think he just offers so much more, especially in a tournament when I don't think we have the dominant squad. Maybe if you're playing a France, you're playing a Portugal, you are the underdog there slightly. And for that reason, I think Bellingham probably starts more games, but Palmer's definitely a valuable tool to have, right?
I think you saw in the Euros where he had the assist and the goal in the semis and the final. You can see by the way he played under Pochettino and first half of Maresca's first season, and for those two goals that he was involved in, he thrives when games are stretched. And it was the same with that Spain game. You know, Saka comes up the wing, plays a pass into the box to Bellingham, who lays it off to Palmer, who's not marked. Palmer scores. Palmer finds that channel pass to Watkins. Watkins has to do a lot to score that still. But, you know, I think when a game is stretched, especially, I don't think there's an attacking player that England have that I'd want on the pitch over him. And games become stretched in tournaments because all these players have played huge club seasons and they're tired, and it's the knockout stages of the tournament. It's July. They've played basically a year straight now, every week, twice a week, some of them. And the games get stretched, and you can have Cole Palmer on, and I think that's where he thrives a lot of the time. And we saw that under Pochettino, especially where Chelsea created transitional situations, and he had 45 goals and assists that season. So, yeah, it'll be interesting from an England perspective. But in terms of Chelsea, it's you know, ever since Chelsea have become a team that dominates the pitch a lot more, I think alongside you and Arsenal, Chelsea over the last 2 seasons have been the teams that are like, we've got a high defensive line, high attacking line. We want the opposition in their own box. In comparison to all the other teams, he's struggled a little bit more to find space, especially moving centrally. But again, I think it's been a difficult sort of year for him with the injuries. So I'll be interested to see, once he gets a clean slate, a little bit of rest. He's not going to get much if he goes to the World Cup, because I think England are probably going to get quite far. It'll be interesting to see how he deals with it, because I'm pretty confident he'll be here next season. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that point on how he maybe thrives in the large spaces more than the tight spaces could be another reason why he's been struggling this season, right? Because we've seen a lot of the teams lower down shift to playing against like a really, really low block against Chelsea. And obviously in those games, he is in the tight spaces. He doesn't have these big transitional moments where he can go and score, where so many of his great goals and great assists come from. And therefore, your output drops. I think it's not Cole Palmer becoming a worse player overnight, because that doesn't happen to anybody, really. We know that. It's all about the system they're playing in, what they're coming up against, and how that suits their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I think what you see with Cole is I think when he's playing against deep defenses, I think he needs to use his goal scoring ability more than his creating ability, because I think if you see, like, he scored against Brentford, which was, I think, Rosenior's first league game in charge, and he sort of runs off the shoulder. Gusto or Caicedo plays him in behind, and this Brentford's defensive line is on the edge of their area, and he's made that run in behind, scores. But then his assists this season in open play have come sort of the Napoli game. It was a lot more transitional. He assisted Joao Pedro twice. Joao Pedro had a lot more space in those situations. He assisted Joao Pedro against Leeds. And that was like one of those Rosenior attacks we've been talking about, where they create the space in behind Leeds' defence, and he exploited that. So I think Rosenior could be helpful to him because Rosenior's has a lot more interest in trying to create those more vertical attacks than Maresca did. So it'll be interesting to see once he gets up to speed a little bit more and that groin becomes less of a problem, how Rosenior fares with him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think someone else who's really interesting with Rosenior is Joao Pedro, right? We've kind of seen him just explode under Rosenior. And I don't know about you, but I think the reason for that is that Rosenior is clearly platforming Joao Pedro way, way better than Maresca did. Like, we see you play with so many players around Joao Pedro now in clusters. There's clearly a focus on getting those little short combinations in the tight areas around zone 14, and that is something that Joao Pedro thrives in. Do you like the decision to platform Joao Pedro over someone like Cole Palmer, or do you think maybe Maresca had it better?
Yeah, I think there's some individual improvements that Joao Pedro's made. Liam Rosenior's been quite outspoken that he's been. I think Joao Pedro's been the one Chelsea player that he's had because Rosenior's a big one-on-ones with players guy. So there's an interview he did with The Athletic in September or October when he was at Strasbourg where he said that he had loads of one-on-ones with Joaquin Panicelli, who joined in the summer, and he's been really, really good for them this season. And it seems like those one-on-ones have a huge impact on the player's form because Joao Pedro is apparently the guy he's spoken to the most since he's come in. And he's been Chelsea's best player since Rosenior took over. But it's like it's not like he's been running quite hot, but he's been doing a lot of the things that he wasn't doing at the start of the season that I found quite frustrating a lot of the time. He's making a lot more runs in behind. He won penalties against Leeds and Burnley by running the channel, which is something he wasn't really doing before. He's taking more shots. His first 11 games for Chelsea in all comps, he shot like once every 80 minutes, and now he's had a couple games now, Arsenal on Sunday, where he shot like 4 times, and those are numbers that you want him to do because it's been throughout this season it's been like just over 2 times a game. So he's been shooting more, which is something that's helped. And I think in general, Joao Pedro is just, I think. It seems like Rosenior's just been working on little things that he needs to do just a little bit more that helps him with his game. And those runs in behind, those shots that he's taking, alongside his hold-up play, which has also was not amazing at the start of the season, but it's been really good. In the 2 games we played against Arsenal at the Emirates, he had a pretty good number on Gabriel and Saliba in those games. Like, they couldn't really get the ball off him without fouling him. A lot of those fouls were uncalled, by the way. They were fouling him. The ref was not giving them.
Erling Haaland has that every week, so you might have to get used to it. The first 2 minutes
of the game, we go long up the line to him. Gabriel is on him, and Gabriel is just hugging him, and the ref is just not giving a foul. But yeah, it's his hold-up play's improved. He's shooting more. He's making more runs in behind, which is great. He's just, I was quite critical of him at the start of the season, but he's been probably Chelsea's best attacker, 100%.
Yeah.
Especially with the amount he's played, and easily their best signing from last summer, which is the bar's in hell. But yeah.
I think I could be the second best signing, and I'm useless. Just quickly as well, just to contextualize those shooting numbers, this is something I did a video on a few weeks ago. But at the start of the season, he was shooting at something like half the volume to Ekitike nearly, which I think is crazy, right? So yeah, I'm not sure what the numbers are now. I think it'd be interesting to see how much that's actually increased.
I think Ekitike is at 3.3 a game, and Joao Pedro has gone up to 2.3 from 2. So yeah, it's still less. I think I think the one thing Joao Pedro has over him is I think maybe Joao Pedro can battle with defenders physically closer. I think
Yeah.
Ekitike is more of like that Bergkamp type player where he gets the ball, he finds the space himself, and he uses his feet to keep away from defenders. Whereas I think Joao Pedro is very much like, I'm happy to like battle with Gabriel, battle with Saliba. But yeah, it's like I made a video about Gyökeres because I think he's having him in the striker position because Kai Havertz has been injured. I think it's been a real issue for Arsenal this season, and that's why their open play attack isn't that great. Or as great as it should be, because a lot of Arsenal fans will say it is really good. But Joao Pedro is one of those ones that shoots a similar amount to Gyökeres, like 2 a game, but you can tell that his general play and what he does outside of being a goal-scoring threat
It's a lot
is a lot more impactful. So Ekitike, it'll be interesting. The thing is with Ekitike is I think he's a little bit more of a runner than Joao Pedro is. But they're very similar as players, 100%.
Yeah, I think a good example of Joao Pedro being combative, if anyone wants to go back and watch the goal, is one he scored against Newcastle a long time ago. I don't know why I remember this. It's ridiculously niche, but
he just wins the
I think it was. Yeah, he just wins the header, flicks it on, runs it behind. Right? I don't think you see Ekitike score a goal like that, whereas you do Joao Pedro. Yeah. But equally, I don't think you see Joao Pedro score anywhere near at the volume that Ekitike does, where he might make a great running behind and beat a defender for pace. So, like we say, they're quite similar players in profile, but I think there are subtle differences here and there that I think probably suit their respective teams there at better.
Yeah, for sure. I think Ekitike is one of those. They're both strikers that scale up really well to big teams because of their general play, and I think that's probably why Liverpool spent so much money on him. Because I would run scared if Chelsea spent 80 million on a striker from the Bundesliga. But he's definitely one of those players that can scale up to bigger teams, and it's shown. Yeah, he's sort of dipped in and out. He wasn't great last night. But yeah, I think them two outside of Haaland, as is every season, have been, alongside probably Igor Thiago because of the volume he's scored, been the best strikers in the league this season. Joao Pedro has been really good. And I think Rosenior's definitely done some things, whether it's just put an arm over his shoulder or whether he's been doing things tactically, asking him to make more runs and all of these things. It's definitely working 100% because he's been on a bit of a hot streak. Like he's been scoring some like bangers. Like against Napoli, the 2 goals he scored were quite like, he's not going to score those in every game. They're not in crazy chances or anything like that. But his general impact on games has improved as well, alongside all of those things, which is great.
Yeah. Just quickly, what do you think of Igor Thiago? Just to go off on a bit of a tangent here. Because I don't rate him. I think he's so bang average. We talked about scalability with someone like Joao Pedro. I think he reeks of a striker that maybe gets a big move to a Spurs and then just fails miserably because he's so reliant on that pacing behind and that threatening behind and having that verticality that you just won't get at a big club. Yeah,
no, I think if a team comes in for him near the top of the Premier League that has more of the ball than Brentford does. I don't know what Brentford's possession is like. And I think it could be he'll get the same question marks over him as Ivan Toney got when Ivan Toney was banging them in for Brentford. Brentford were a very, very direct team under Thomas Frank, and Ivan Toney benefited a lot from that. And Igor Thiago is probably similar. Like to me, playing against Brentford, that's where they were really good against us, is they were very, very direct. And that was a huge problem, especially because we were playing centre-backs that couldn't really defend space well. And it's like, it's the age-old question mark of like, is the striker who has loads of space where he is going to be able to perform in a space in a team where he's not going to get the space? But it's nothing to be sniffed at. Like what Brentford have done this season in general is crazy. I think if you look at the expected points table, they are 6th. So they are a very good team. This isn't like a Forest last season or anything like that.
Or an Aston Villa.
or an Aston Villa this season. So
We'll get a dig.
it's yeah, they've been very good, and Keith Andrews has been great. And again, it's like Brentford don't have a very adaptable play style to bigger teams, so there's always going to be question marks there. But again, it's like, he's a guy that if Brentford ever want to move on for 30, 40 million, maybe 50, a team will give it a go, like we did with
Yeah.
Lap. Like, you'll give it a go. It's not really like, if it doesn't work out, it's not that big of a deal. You're not spending 80 million on him. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does next season, whether it continues and all of that. But it
Yeah.
seems like Brentford is the right place for him to be doing that.
I think just to go back to Joao Pedro very quickly as well, because I've found an interesting graph on my phone that a follower sent me that basically it plots XG over performance over the last 5 seasons. And we're talking about Joao Pedro maybe not shooting that much. I think he should shoot more, this suggests, because he is a very, very solid finisher. Like if we look at the last 5 seasons, he's 0.3% above XG overall, which is very, very insignificant. But the fact that he's meeting XG suggests that he should be shooting more. But within that, there is like a really bad season of underperformance that's dragged the average down massively. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this would suggest that in terms of finishing, like he's similar to someone like Lewandowski, someone like an Ekatike. Like he absolutely should be shooting more. And I think if he can somehow get that into his game, that's how he goes to the next level for me.
Yeah, I think in general, it's more of a case of just I want my striker shooting 3 times a game at the very least. If you're not getting those shots elsewhere, which in Chelsea's attack, we've not really got anyone that's going to be doing that. So I think the thing with him is that like he gets a lot of very high quality shots. So if you look at his XG per shot, it's probably quite high in compared to the rest of Europe. So it's like he's a very good finisher. He's a better finisher than Jackson, but it's about getting those chances more often and taking those shots. But he has been in the last few weeks. He's been getting anywhere between 2 and 4 times per game. Whereas at the start of the season, you were very, very lucky to get 2 from him in a game, which was frustrating at times. But yeah.
And the thing I always come back to with strikers and finishing as well is that in the grand scheme of things, it's basically irrelevant because even your absolute best finishers in the game, like we're talking your Harry Kanes, your Mbappe's, like Messi's the only real outlier. Most players are so close to their XG. The fact that they're a good finisher is like insignificant. Like if we look at Kylian Mbappe, for example, he's 17% over his XG over the last 5 seasons. Harry Kane is 17.5. Like these aren't massive numbers that are going to increase the amount of goals you score usually. Like we're talking if he scored 100 goal at 100 XG even, he's scoring 17 more goals than the average player. Like that isn't huge. The bigger factor is how can you accumulate way more XGs? Like someone like Erling Haaland, who is basically bang on his XG every time. Like he only overperforms by about 5% or something. He is such a good goal scorer because he's so good at accumulating lots of chances. He's shooting all the time, and that's what allows him to go and score loads of goals. So when you're looking at a striker who you want to score goals, this is the key, right? It's about getting on the end of more chances, shooting more often. And like we say, that is the clear improvement Joao Pedro, I think, can make in his game to go to that next level.
Yeah, for sure. I think being better in the penalty box, in terms of getting those chances, not in terms of finishing, because his finishing is very, very good. If you go watch all the goals he scores, if he's 1-on-1 with a goalkeeper, I'm pretty confident that he's going to score it. And that's not, I can't say that about a lot of Chelsea's attackers. So, yeah, it's been a really good couple months for him, and I hope it continues because he will, if we manage to get in the Champions League or win the FA Cup or do anything big this season, he'll be a huge reason for that.
Yeah. I think just to back up the point of finishing versus accumulating quickly with some data, Semenyo, for example, if we're looking at purely XG, is the best finisher in the world over the past 5 years or so, who's in Europe's top 5 leagues and who's scoring 10 plus goals. But Erling Haaland scores way, way more goals because he accumulates more chances. If we look at this season, for example, Semenyo is 47% overperforming his XG, which is ridiculous, right? Haaland is only 6%, yet Haaland has scored 22 goals and Semenyo has scored 14 because Haaland gets himself almost double the chances. Like, this is the important factor here.
Yeah, I think with all of that, it's very much also about position as well. I think the best overperformer I've seen is Messi, obviously, because he's the top of everything. Ronaldo's not really close to him, but I think it's probably because Ronaldo's played striker for the last decade, basically. And it's probably the same with Haaland, is the strikers just get lots of chances. So it's hard for them to overperform their XG because the chances they're getting are not bad ones, or they're not low percentage ones. Whereas Semenyo, it's kind of he's coming in off the left a lot of the time. Whereas with you, and how he's obviously played a lot more centrally. When he was at Bournemouth, he was coming in off the left and shooting with both feet. And that's the thing as well, is Semenyo can score with both feet, and that helps with being good in that statistic, as we saw with Son as well and Harry Kane as well. Strikers that are good finishers with both their feet often have good XG performance. And Joao Pedro's shown that. Like the goal he scored against Napoli, the really good one where he went into top corner, that was with his weaker foot. So yeah, it's with him. He's been on. I've really enjoyed his goal scoring and his actual striker play the last couple of months, because it felt like when he first came here, he wanted to be behind a striker, but he's really evolved, and that's important. Like having players that can do that is great, and not having players that can come in and evolve into what you want them to be is really important. So yeah, I'm feeling really good about him at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're in quite a good position for strikers right now for me, just because you have those varying profiles as well. Like you have Joao Pedro, will profile as more of this false 90 type player. And then you've got Liam Delap, someone who's going to pin the ball. You have the option of bringing Jackson back again, maybe someone who's going to run in behind more. Then you've got Omega coming in too, who is this target man-esque kind of player. Like there's so many varying profiles in that team that you can kind of adjust the striker for the football you want to play. And I think that's a great weapon to have, because it means you can compete against a variety of defensive setups.
Yeah, I think the issue probably is there's a lot of question marks about whether Delap is really good enough. I think there's a lot of the fundamental basics that he's not amazing at. He hasn't got amazing link up play. I think he has the physical tools to have good hold up play, but he doesn't have as much of the brain for it. He doesn't know where to put his feet, his footwork when he's doing hold up play, and all these things isn't the best. He did have an injury for 2 months. I think he either tore or strained his hamstring or something. It was a hamstring injury. He was out from September to November, which probably didn't help him. But yeah, the varying profiles are good. Omega's also been injured all season, so we'll see what happens with that. Jackson, the doors opened a little bit because his issues were with Maresca. I'd like to see Jackson back because I'm a huge Jackson fan. I didn't like the idea of moving him on. I felt like if we had him this season, we'd be a better team. But yeah, it's interesting. I think, and again, a lot of Chelsea fans are saying that we bought the wrong Strasbourg striker because of the way Panicelli's playing. But I'm sure if we really, really wanted him, he could turn up at some point.
Get him too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we'll see, the interesting thing with Jackson is that I think he's quite similar to Rob Sanchez in a way in terms of the narrative around him, because I'm also a big Nick Jackson fan. I think he's fantastic in almost everything he does up to that final action. But because that final action often isn't fantastic, again, he kind of gets branded as this bozo and becomes this meme, and then it becomes problematic in a way.
Yeah, I think striker and goalkeeper are very difficult to shake a reputation. We saw that with even if Darwin Núñez had like an okay season at Liverpool, he would still have that label on him, and it's the same with Højlund and all of these other strikers. I think that the overall sentiment around Jackson is a lot more positive, like from outside of Chelsea, like other fans, is a lot more positive than it is for Rob Sanchez. I think I see a lot of fans of a lot of other clubs they rate Jackson. They don't really know why he moved on. It'll be interesting because I think we're missing some of the stuff that he offers, because I think in comparison to Joao Pedro, he's more of a runner. He's more direct. I think he links up better in like high traffic than Joao Pedro does. I think Joao Pedro is good at physically holding defenders off, whereas I think Jackson's very similar to Ekitike in a lot of ways, which sounds, a lot of Liverpool fans would scoff at that, but like, their dribbling ability is pretty comparable. Ekitike is definitely a better finisher than he is. But I think, Chelsea were looking at Ekitike in the summer, and it was probably because they were thinking of moving Jackson on completely. That didn't materialise, probably because of the price. But I think I think we'd be in a really good spot if we went into next season with Jackson and Pedro, because I think they can play together as well. Because I think that they'd complement each other, and that's what a lot of Chelsea fans are saying. They feel like they've been robbed of them two playing together, because they think it would be really good, especially with the form Palmer's in. It feels like you could take a bit of weight off of his shoulders, a bit of heat off of him. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, just quickly to finish off here, like, how close do you think Chelsea are to being able to go and compete for a league title, go and maybe win a Champions League? 'Cause I think you're maybe closer than most people think. Like, I look at the squad here, like Sanchez, maybe not good enough, but he is a very solid keeper. Like, you could win something with him, maybe, which contradicts what I said earlier completely. But and then you've got Reece James, Cucurella. The centre backs may be lacking slightly, and then you look at the midfield. You've got Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Palmer, Estevao off the right, Joao Pedro up front. Like, there's a really solid core there. Like, I look at that team and I think, okay, well, maybe one big player and a good centre back like a Slotterbeck away from competing here. Would you agree with that, or do you think more changes would be needed?
The overarching feeling for me that I always go back to is, and I think a lot of Chelsea fans, relate to this, is that we're so close yet so far.
Yeah,
it feels like we are three big signings away from, being in that mix with you and Arsenal. But there's a feeling that Chelsea's ownership and the board aren't the people that will make those signings, because it would involve sort of really stretching the wage structure the club has, and veering away from that model of like, oh, we'll buy someone, and even if they don't work out, we can flip them for a decent amount of money anyway because they're so young. And it kind of feels like it's been like 7 transfer windows now. I remember there's this famous tweet by David Ornstein saying that Chelsea had a 4-window plan. It's been 7, and we still probably need, as you said, a centre-back, probably a big left winger, and maybe a midfielder away, and maybe a goalkeeper as well, away from it. This season, if you look at the XG numbers when we play 11v11, we are pretty much there with Arsenal and you in terms of our underlying numbers.
Yeah, there's a good graph from Mark's stats there. No?
Yeah,
just quickly.
Yeah.
Right, I'll stick that on the screen now, so you can look at the graph.
Yeah, that was one that went around, which is fun because I ever since FBref got nuked, I have been struggling to find places to get data like this, and Mark Stats is a very good website for anyone watching that likes numbers. Go on the website because there's lots of interesting statistics on there that you don't really get much anywhere else, and they're all free. Yeah, it's with the red cards. It's been, there's a lot of things that Chelsea can do 11v11 and tactically that have probably meant we've lost games and stuff like that. But ultimately, if Chelsea get 2 red cards this season, they're probably third by like 6 points. We're probably like within 3 points of you, or something like that. It's and technically still in the title race or whatever. Like that is probably the reality. And then when you add that to the fact that we've been terrible at defending set pieces, especially long throws a lot of the time, if we're mid-table instead of the worst team in the league at it, then we're probably even further up or even closer. It's these frustrating little things. And where I land with it is that I think the culture in the club sort of inspires a lack of accountability. And I think that's what's led to lack of focus and concentration on set pieces, because I don't think the set piece issue is entirely the set piece coach. I think it's players not fulfilling assignments. I think I look at the game on Sunday where we conceded that winner against Arsenal. I think Sanchez is focusing on the man rather than the ball. I think Sarr is focusing on the man rather than the ball. And if you don't do that, then we don't concede that corner. I think with the red cards, they're all just completely stupid, essentially. Like the first one happened, it was Sanchez against Man United. Happens. Man United were going along at that point. They had Sesko up front. Amrin was still there, fighting for his life. And some things happen. Chalobah misses an aerial duel. Sanchez wipes out in Buemo, gets a red card. That's chalked down as a loss because we're playing 85 minutes less than the man. Actually turned out to be a whole half because Casemiro got sent off. So it went down to 10v10. But we were already losing by that point. And all of these red cards, when that one happens, you go, oh, it happens. And then Chalobah gets sent off against Brighton the week after. And then Gusto gets sent off in stoppage time when we're 3-0 up against Forest for a yellow card, second yellow card, which is like, that doesn't impact the game, but it's really stupid. And then you look at all of the red cards that have come up until then. You look at the Caicedo tackle against Arsenal. We managed to come out of that, but we lose Caicedo for 2 games. In those 2 games, we lose away at Leeds. And it's like these red cards are probably the biggest difference between Chelsea being with you and currently being 6th. With, if Chelsea lose tonight against Aston Villa, Champions League's probably not happening. And in my opinion, those things have come from, I think there's a culture of a lack of accountability at the football club, because I think those issues have outlasted Maresca, have continued into Rosenior's reign. It's very clearly, it's becoming clear that not much of what's wrong at Chelsea and why they're short, as we say, they're so close yet so far, is not really the coaching that they're doing, because Maresca and Rosenior seem pretty comparable. Like, I think if you give Rosenior the right squad, he can compete with any team in Europe. You can tell that he's got good modern footballing principles. I'm not saying he's Guardiola, he's Klopp or anything, or Arteta, but it's very clear that he understands the game really well and he can set up a team. But it's yeah. I think going into the run-in, Chelsea have a really hard run-in. We've got Villa, then Newcastle. We've got to go to Anfield, play Man United at Stamford Bridge, play City at Stamford Bridge, play Spurs, which is a big game. Not for us, isn't that hard most of the time. And then we've got to go away to Sunderland on the last day, and it just seems like, and I said at the start of the season, I'm not expecting a title race, because I don't think we're there yet. I'm expecting us to get in the Champions League places with no real stress about it. Doesn't look like that's happening. And I'm at a point now where, I think the Chelsea fans are frustrated at a lack of accountability and this idea that the people above at the top of the football club are just pretending like everything is okay when everything isn't. So yeah, that was a very long-winded answer to what your question was. But
just quickly as well, we'll go into fairyland for a bit. Let's just say unlimited budget. We don't care about money at all or wages. You've got 3 signings you can make for Chelsea in the summer to get them to compete for a title next year. Who would you bring in? like with an element of realism as well, because we could just say, turn like Mbappe and whatnot, but like
Um,
targets that are obtainable, but maybe not altogether.
um, so left wing, I would go with probably Bradley Barcola. He would probably cost like 80, 90 million and probably quite a big fat load of wages. But I think if Chelsea really wanted to go out and just sod the wage structure and start breaking it and spend money on big signings, I think he's the one you go for because he's young. I think he does all the right things for a big team. I think, you know, he's like Garnacho on steroids in a way, which is a compliment.
It's still terrible.
No, but like in the sense that like the problem with Garnacho is like he'll do all those things where he'll arrive at the back post and make runs in behind.
Yeah.
Barcola will do all of that, but he's very good with getting the ball to his feet and running at a fullback and getting lots of good shots off. And he's just a better player than Garnacho in basically every department. But it's like Chelsea, what they want is they want to sign Garnacho in the hope he becomes Barcola instead of just signing Barcola.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's the same with Gittins. It's like, we'll sign Gittins because he's got good dribbling ability and he has a high ceiling technically, but like he could not work out. It's just like, it feels like Chelsea do those signings that you make on 3 or 4 positions in the squad that you sign as backups because you're like, these guys could turn out to be all right and they could be helpful. But Chelsea do it for like starting positions. They do it for the start. The 2 left wingers that we had going into the season were guys where you're like, let's see if they're good. Instead of we know they're good. It's not like signing Semenyo, for example. So Barcola would be my left wing for that reason. Centre back is really difficult because you said Schlosserbeck, which would be great.
I think there's one name I'd go ahead of Schlosserbeck.
Is that Bastoni by any chance?
It's not Bastoni, no, it's Van Heck from Brighton. I love Van Heck. I think he's unbelievable.
We could just Levy's gone, so Spurs might want to sell stuff to us. If they go down, we could go and try and get Van de Ven or something. But we probably need a right centre back. I'm really stumped with it. Like I felt like Xhaka would have been good. It's Schlotterbeck is one, but like Colwell's coming back from an ACL. Like I think Colwell should be starting at left centre back for us.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure. There's a lot of great centre backs out there, but it's like I feel like again, Gahey probably was the one for us that you ended up getting, but he turned us down. He didn't want to come back for a multitude of reasons that probably to do with when he was originally with us. So I don't know with centre back, but then I'd probably go midfielder as well. I'd probably go. I mean, Anderson makes a lot of sense. I think he would just be like a better version of Santos next to Caicedo. I just play him next to Caicedo, and I think then I become a little bit more, because if you're signing Barcola, you become a little bit more okay with and Anderson. You come a little bit more okay with maybe selling Enzo to Real Madrid or someone for like 80 to 100 million. I don't know. This is the problem, right? Is that I can sit here and say that I don't like the transfer strategy and that we should sign these types of players, but it's very difficult to think of, because Chelsea, they tried to sign Victor Osimhen. We tried to sign Mark Gahey, and those are the types of signings that Chelsea fans probably want. But Victor Osimhen, for some reason, wants Saudi Arabian wages, which is just completely, and that's why he's in Turkey. And Gahey he didn't like the idea of coming back, and he obviously was like, no, it probably should be Liverpool or Man City, and he ended up with you.
Sorry, just at centre back, what would you think to someone like Senesi? So I don't think he's that level raiser, but I think bringing him in as a right centre back, as a squad player, I think is a really good option. But if we look at, especially on the ball metrics, like he's outstanding in almost every department. And he's someone that, unless he's signed a contract in the last week at Bournemouth that I've missed, I think he's available on a free transfer this summer. I think it's a really sensible signing for any big club who just want some more oomph
Yeah,
at centre back.
yeah.
He's not very
you are
exciting,
right.
which I think is the problem.
You are right.
But
He's
out of contract. Again, it's difficult because the problem with Chelsea is that with centre back is that they've signed players like Badiashile and Disasi, and they've brought Sarr in, who could turn out to be pretty good. He looks all right, but it just feels like a little bit half baked. And once again, it's the hope that one of them becomes really good in some way. And I think with Senesi, it's sort of like he's 29, I think.
Yeah, he's quite old.
Which it feels like a bit of a stopgap.
Yeah,
and I think at this point Chelsea want like the real deal, and I think it'd be interesting to see how he would do. It's centre back is difficult in general because it feels like there's good centre backs that just come along every season. Like Xhaka,
I think the centre back position right now is so stacked. Like I think it's unbelievable, especially in the Premier League. Like I look at every team and think everyone has an elite centre back. Basically, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and and I'm sure there's ones out there. I need to look into it further, but yeah, I just think that with the way Chelsea have been, they need to go and get sort of the real deal. And I think for them last summer that was Dean Huijsen, but Real Madrid ended up like we were about to sign him. I'm pretty sure. Like he said he wanted to join, and then in come Real Madrid, and then that goes kaput. So it's difficult. There's ones that come around every season, and I don't want to sit here and just say, get Bastoni or anything like that, because I don't know if Bastoni's that good defensively, and he probably cost like 80 million quid, and it's like, yeah. So I'm sure there's centre-backs in the Premier League, and I think Chelsea fans, to get Chelsea fans on side, that's probably the way to go, is to get someone from within the Premier League, because I think they're probably sick of dudes from France. Nothing against France, but specifically,
there's no wrong with someone from France, man. I love a little French league signing. They're great.
But it's just like centre backs just come from nowhere, man. Like Liverpool, 65 million on the guy who's played like 30 senior games. Like it's just,
it is mental.
There'll be someone there that could come in and probably do it. I think Fofana and Colwill was a good partnership, but I think a lot of people feel like now, because of his recent red card against Burnley and the stuff off the pitch, they feel like Fofana's a bit unserious.
Yeah.
In a way. So they don't know whether he's one to sort of hang your hat on long term.
I don't know. I think he feels a bit... He's always injured for one. Like he's a player that, unless you know otherwise, you always assume he's not available. And
so
I
he's
think
been pretty available this season.
Really?
Yes.
But he doesn't have those... Maybe it's probably more just me not watching.
He's still on like minutes restrictions.
The club is still hesitant to play him like 3 times in a week, for example. So he'll be rested. So that's the issue. But he's not had an injury this season, and that's been good.
Yeah.
But you can't really. Yeah, you're right. The injuries are a thing.
You can't rely on
him,
though.
Yeah, he's like, outside of Colwill, he's very easily our best centre back.
Yeah.
But it's the whole thing with the petulance. A lot of people talk about the points he has on his driving license. He has like 50 points on it. And there's loads of videos of him driving really erratically around Surrey. And people sort of relate that to him on the pitch. They're like, he's just a bit unserious, and like nobody should expect a player to have like a level head when they've got 50 points on the driving license at 25.
How'd you get 50 points and you're still allowed to drive?
I think he recently earlier last year got like a ban or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought you got your license removed at 12. Because random tangent. I got done on the same camera in the same day twice, going there and back for like 4 miles an hour over, and I've been banned from driving on 6 out of fear of getting 3 more. So,
what is his? I need to actually see. I'll have a look now to see actually what it is, because I'm quite interested now. But yeah, no, he's just. he's got a lot of really good fundamentals as a centre back. Like, but when we signed him for that much money, I thought sure there were some people that were like, oh, he's that's quite a lot of money. But at that point in time, when he was at Leicester, he was like arguably the best young centre back in the league.
Yeah.
But he just his knee had just blown up, and we'd just spent 80 million on him, and it very much seemed like not very sensible. And it kind of turned out that way. From my perspective, I think it feels like, Chelsea could be 3 signings away. I could give you 3 signings that I think would bridge that gap, quite a lot of that gap to Chelsea, to sort of Arsenal, Man City. It doesn't feel like they want to make them. To be honest, it feels like it's more of, the most likely really expensive one, I think, at this moment in time that Chelsea could make is probably Morgan Rogers, because of the Joe Shields link, and we've been heavily linked with him, and he's always commenting on our players' Instagram posts, and
I must be coming then.
Yeah, and with him, it's like, the price. There's a report that came out recently of him being linked with Liverpool and Chelsea. And apparently the price is like 80 million. I'm like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah, I don't think he moves the needle enough. Like, he has great moments, right? Like in that 12-game Aston Villa run that I hate on so frequently, where he'd score a banger and he was fantastic there. But realistically, since then, he's been rather absent in their games. I just don't really look at Rodgers and what he does and see something different to what you currently have in a Cole Palmer, in an Esteval. Like, I don't think he's really adding much to the squad, especially for such a big price. Like, for that money, you could go and get Barcola instead, basically. And I think that's such a more sensible signing to make.
Yeah, I think a lot of it for Chelsea fans that rate him, it comes from the idea that it feels like Chelsea need a guy who can carry the ball in the middle of the midfield. From an attacking perspective, we have Lavia, but he's more of a deep guy. He progresses it from deep.
Yeah.
So having someone like Rodgers that can play as sort of like a more narrow attacking midfielder that can carry the ball, that can physically compete is one thing. And I agree with that. Like, he's very good at carrying the ball through the middle of the pitch. That's one of the things he's really good at. He's got great feet. But I'm a big believer in data a lot of the time, and his data sucks.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I'm paying 80 million for a guy, I need to see. I know people don't like judging players on graphs, radar graphs, all that stuff, but I need to see it needs to look good.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Like he's a good.
Exactly.
I take him as someone, but like he isn't going to come and want to be back up to Palmer, so he's going to play on the left. So you're probably going to need an overlapping winger, fullback. Sorry, that Cucurella kind of isn't that. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they go through with that. If we don't get Champions League, I don't really know if Rodgers would even join then. But
yeah, just on data as well. Like, there's a reason Premier League clubs will pump millions and millions into these like massive large data models, and then pay like some of the money analysts are moving for now is like really, really high. It's because data is king, because data can't be biased through eye test. It can't be biased to moments. And yes, I think sometimes you miss the context, right? But overall, data is a far better indicator of long-term success than eyes are. Like, that is just the reality of it.
There's some people that I'll 100% listen to if they tell me, that doesn't tell the full story here. But like all these people on Twitter that say, like, I use my eyes, I'm just like, I'd much rather look at the XG they're creating, how many touches they're getting in the box, how much they're carrying into the box, the shots, like what the quality of the shots they're getting off. I'd rather look at all these things to assess an attacking player than to listen to what some guy on Twitter's eye test tells him.
Yeah. Exactly. I think we'll end it there before we get cancelled for saying things about these Twitter people. But, cheers for coming on for your second appearance on the show, Tom. And if you're an enjoyer of the podcast, we're back on Tuesday with another second appearance. Rupak's coming back on, and we're talking Manchester City, Real Madrid again for the 7th year running or something ridiculous now. I'm sure that'll be really interesting and not the same conversation we've had for the past 7 years all over again. But it will be interesting, so please listen to it. Anyway, bye-bye.